What's up, Yang Gang? So I'm gonna try to talk louder than this music in the background. I don't know. I may have to mute it, y'all, because we will be demonetized. Alright, so yeah, we might have to mute it until the song's over, y'all. I don't know, man. Whatever. Maybe we can just make it up in the super chat. I don't know. What's up, Yang Gang?
So Andrew's gonna be here in a little bit.
Andrew Yang will be here shortly to speak. And y'all make sure that you tweet this out. Make sure that we get some people in here on the live stream. It's good to see a lot of familiar faces. But I'm gonna turn this camera around.
You want to?
We are at the Branch and Blade. Pretty cool name. Keene, New Hampshire. Give y'all a look at the place. We got our usual news media over here. Thank you so much, Jones. We appreciate that very much. Yang of Thrones, Crown Tortuga, exactly right. So we got tonight, you come to see us. And we Steve Marchand is already here. So gang, this will be the first of 2 live streams tonight. So make sure you tweet it out, get it out there, and tell them that we're live. Had to get the Hatam hat. Kyle Watson, thank you. Oh, I get the Hatam hat. Kyle Watson, thank you. Oh, we can't wait to meet you either, Kai. I'm trying to master how you talk so damn fast, but I swear I can't. I'm so country, I just stumble over my words all the time. And so I can't do it. I can't do it, Kai. You are the man as far as fast talking goes. So thank you very much for that super chat. We are live at the Branch and Blade Brewing Company here in New Hampshire, and we are live streaming to you here in New Hampshire, and we are live streaming to you. So make sure that you tweet it out so we can get some people in here. Y'all, this snow up here is crazy. They got hit really hard. When we was driving in here up into this area, oh my word, it's twice the snow where we had. It was coming in. So if you are coming to this event, make sure that you drive carefully out there, y'all. These roads are crazy up here in New Hampshire. So we hope everybody's doing good out there. How is everybody? Talk to me now. How's this live stream coming through? Is it coming through clear? Turn it back around. Y'all don't want to see my face? It's all right. I understand. Thank you so much, Edward Travis. Yes, Thistledown. We are so glad we are in a safer car too. But the payment on it is crazy. A bit pixelated. I'm sorry. I can try it. Here's the thing, y'all. Okay. I can try to stream this from Mama's phone, but I don't know if she's gonna get enough signal in here. Obviously her phone is better. So if I'm gonna do it, I need to do it now though. Snowing or Asheville. I love Asheville. Asheville's awesome. So y'all make sure that you, it feels like I'm almost gonna cut off. Oh God. Let me see if I can get Mama's phone. Hold on, y'all. Maybe as long as I don't move the camera. Crazy lag. Damn it, man. Alright, y'all hold tight. Oh, wait, I see Mama. Hold on, I'm going to throw up the claw for her. Maybe we need to try it from your phone? Damn it. I guess we need to try it from your phone.
Did it go down? Or is it just
It's
bad?
just choppy. All right, Yang Gang, we're going to stop this. I don't know. We're going to check. So give us just a minute, and we're going to redo this, and we're going to see if we can get it back up.
I have no signal.
No signal?
Is there Wi-Fi?
Do you happen to have a Wi-Fi? All right, we're going to switch to Wi-Fi.
You could just log in there, and it should be fine. You wouldn't have to cancel it.
All right. We're going to see what we can do here.
Okay, I think we're back.
Let's see.
Better.
Yes, we just switched to Wi-Fi. How's it coming through now, y'all? Is it coming through better or what? We're on the Wi-Fi. We got 28 people. We need to get all of our people back.
Everybody left us.
No. It went down for a second. Sorry, y'all. We had to switch to the Wi-Fi. I know it kicked some of y'all off, but we are back. Better than ever, hopefully. Smooth. It's a little crooked. It is a little crooked. I'm not sure what to do about that.
Here, I got you.
Maybe that.
No, it'll be fine.
All right. Yeah, switch it back.
You're looking at it wrong. Now it's crooked again. I'm just shorter than you, remember?
All right.
Now it's right.
Let me get down here with mine. All right. So make sure that y'all get this back out there. Tweet it out. Sorry about the interruption. We had to switch to Wi-Fi. I thought the signal was going to be enough. Apparently it wasn't. So
We're out in the middle of nowhere.
we are out in the middle of nowhere for sure. In New Hampshire. But there are a lot of Californians here. A lot of Californians. I'm going to switch this around so y'all can see.
Tell everyone else to get off that Wi-Fi.
Face is crooked. Thank you so much, Joseph Z. We appreciate you. Gang times better. Awesome. Who is that pretty bald head back there I see? Can y'all call that name out? That dude in that jacket back there with the shiny head. Y'all know who that is? Put it in the chat if you know who that is. Talking about Steve Marchand.
You just gave away the answer.
Dang it. Steve. For sure.
My eyes are
Grab you a beer. Somebody buy me a beer. Would you rather us donate to Super Chat or PayPal? Okay. Here's the thing. We really don't care either way, to be honest with you. The Super Chat we'll get next month. The PayPal we have access to immediately. So it's more convenient to have it on the PayPal.
And it's also nice to have that to look forward to next month, and not have to worry about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So either way, we don't care. We love y'all and we appreciate every dollar that y'all donate to this channel because it helps us get to these events and it helps us cover it. And it really helped us get a car yesterday. It really did. That's we made it a point that the money that we get, we're going to use as wisely as possible. Because we don't want to waste any of it because it's so important and we know how hard everybody works for it. We know what it's like to work hard. And we put in a lot of hours on this, y'all. And we just, so we understand. And then so we used it to secure a vehicle for us yesterday so that we can make these events and so that we can do everything that we need to do. Because if I can't go out and know that my car is going to fire up, or I gotta wait until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, well, the day is already gone. I can't do that. I've got to be able to get out here in these streets in New Hampshire, and because that's what we do. So we appreciate each and every dollar that y'all donate, gang. It goes a long way, believe it. it helped pay for the hotel rooms that we had to secure so that we could be here for the next couple of days. So, yes, we appreciate it. I'm going to turn this back around for y'all because I know y'all don't want to see my video. So, we thank you for being here, y'all. Thank you for tweeting it out. And make sure, being here every time that we release a video. Now we're crooked again. What's wrong?
I think your eyes are crooked because you keep crooked into them.
Alright, my bubble's right.
But the floor may not be level.
We're adjusting, y'all. Hold on.
Okay, I have an idea.
Hold on, y'all. We're readjusting here. There we go.
That looks straight, right?
Much better. Much better. Great job, Mama Yang Gang.
Hey, what's up? How you guys doing?
Who's this guy right
We
here?
made it through.
How you doing, bro?
How you doing? Good to see you. There you go.
You know we're gonna come through.
Man, the weather not as bad during the day. Last night was actually the baddest stuff. And the forecast at one point, we were afraid Andrew might have to cancel, right? Because they couldn't drive up.
That's what we were concerned about too.
That worked out, and it was already in Keene, so he'll be here pretty much on time. Yep.
As we always do when we make these stops. Did you care to say anything to the Yang Gang?
Yeah, all right, I'll do that. Hello, Yang Gang. Welcome to snowy Keene, New Hampshire. Andrew drove up from New York this morning. A little inside baseball. We actually got Andrew here several hours ago. We found a home that we did some filming of a number of some film that we're going to use for some TV commercials that you'll be seeing in New Hampshire and across America shortly. And then he's doing an editorial board with the Keene Sentinel, which is the local paper here in town. They usually endorse Democrats in the primary, and they've been kind to a lot of really good candidates over the years, and we think Andrew's a great match for their editorial board. And they will be covering tonight's event here at the brewery. And then when we're done here, hopefully the snow won't pick up again. It's supposed to pick up a little bit, but we'll be careful. Now we got the right tires, we got snow tires. And then we're going to drive to Hanover, which is about an hour 10 on a good day from here. Your times may vary today. And then we've got an event with a really good RSVP list for tonight in Hanover, 7 o'clock. That's where Dartmouth College is, although the school is actually not in session right now. So we got great RSVPs. We got a lot more RSVPs today, even during the storm. And then we're going to stay in Hanover tonight. Tomorrow morning we have another event in Hanover with a totally different group, a group of older residents in a retirement community that will definitely not be at tonight's event. Totally different crowd. Then we go down I-89, we go to New London, Colby Sawyer College. Then we go to Manchester for an official opening of our Manchester campaign office. Then he's got to hit the road, and then we get back to work.
We can't wait for tomorrow because we're going to cover the one in the one at 12:30.
Yes.
And then we're going to also cover the office opening.
Yeah, office openings are going to be really fun.
Can't wait for that.
Good press
That's
for
gonna
it. Andrew's always really high energy. I mean, they're really fun, you know? So it's going to be a great time. The Manchester office is a couple of blocks from where I grew up. It's on the west side of Manchester. A very kind of immigrant-rich background. My folks are immigrants from Quebec. We grew up in a French-speaking household. Very blue-collar. We filed bankruptcy because of a healthcare emergency when I was a teenager. Because we didn't have insurance like a lot of us in the neighborhood did. That's the kind of neighborhood it is. Like, these are people that have experienced some of the challenges that Andrew talks about. And a lot of folks, like my parents, voted for Donald Trump in 2016. And they say if Andrew is the nominee, they're all in for Andrew. And if it's not, they're all in for Trump again. And I believe that Andrew is the person that really gives us the best chance. And otherwise, even people that don't feel like Donald Trump has done everything they thought he would, well, they're still looking for change. They're looking for a lot of change. And if we give them a choice in 2020 between Donald Trump, who, whatever you think of him, is still an outsider. He is still an outsider. And the Democratic matchup is somebody who can easily be portrayed as an insider. We really run the risk of the same dynamic as 2016. And I think my parents and a lot of my friends and family that still live on the west side of Manchester are like that. They feel that way. So it's an immigrant, rich neighborhood, and I grew up walking past this building, which was a barber shop for 25 years, and he retired less than a year ago. Has the barber's chair.
Now, is he the one that cut your hair?
I had a full head of hair before I got off. If you've been watching this, you know this is not my choice. He said if you sit in the barber's chair tomorrow, I can't promise you. You might get a freedom dividend, but you also might get a really big I don't know what's going to happen. It's still got the checkered floor.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
School, and it's been a great space for us since we opened it recently, and Andrew will christen it officially tomorrow.
How huge was it for the Yang Gang to raise $2 million in a week?
It's crazy. I mean, this is what I tell everybody. Think about this. Think about the growth of this campaign. In the first quarter of the year, the first 3 months of this year, Andrew raised a total of $1.7 million in 3 months. He raised $2 million and change in a week. He raised $750,000 in a day.
A day.
Think about that. That's almost half of what took 3 months. Not last year, not 2017. This year. So we've gone from 1.7 in the first quarter to 2.8 in the second quarter, which is a nice growth. But, third quarter, 10 million. And we're going to bust through that number big time this quarter. Obviously, there's still a month to go. If you're in the spirit of giving, keep giving. It's low dollar contributions that are making it happen.
I've got a lot of Act Blue receipts.
I'm telling you, my family, $5, $10, $20, and you keep giving. And after a while, it adds up. And it added up this weekend for a $750,000 gain. That's pretty awesome.
It's pretty amazing.
It's definitely yanking. That's why. And it allows us to do things like film TV ads today that we can run that in addition to our field effort, get the word out to people that may be not high information voters and they get their choices from the TV. And we need to be able to communicate in a forum like this, in our telephone and door knock program, and on the TV. And the money allows us to do the TV. So thank you, Day.
Absolutely. Brother, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Great to see you guys.
See you again in a minute.
We'll see you a little later here, and
Absolutely. All right, gang. We're back.
Did y'all hear that? Because I know that we have a speaker right in our ear. So I'm hoping everything came out.
Did everything come through clear? That's not what I'm saying, because obviously nothing I say comes through clear. But he was just talking about the importance of every one of the broke folks out there. But I made another 25 contribution during the go.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. And thank you for the super chats that have come through. We're trying to scroll back through for a second, but we're not finding it. Thank you so much, Hyman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much appreciated, y'all. So basically what he's saying is what I was saying on the videos. A lot of us are the broke folk vote, right? And we go to work, we work 2 jobs, we come home, we sit down on the couch, man, we don't even really want to be bothered with stuff because we're so damn tired. So what do? We switch on the TV, we either turn on Netflix or Hulu or something with the TV, and we see these ads now that are being run in New Hampshire. These are the voters that we're reaching now. We're reaching people who are not low information because they want to be low information. They're just low information because life circumstances may be forcing them in that direction. Yep.
Some people, they get their political news or whatever off the TV, especially a lot of the older generation. They still watch TV.
And Michael Knoyer, thank you. Shout outs to you. That's one of our executive producers. Thank you so much, Michael. I was gonna say something.
No, go ahead.
But look, y'all, Mama doesn't get a whole lot of screen time because I talk so damn much. But y'all ask Mama some questions.
Oh gosh, don't put me on the
Y'all ask her some questions.
I'm not very eloquent, I guess. Yeah,
Sounds tired. We love you,
you won't
Tom.
make it very far. I'm not worried.
So talk for a minute about how Elizabeth Warren is falling off his pole.
Right, yes. I don't know if y'all have noticed, but after the last debate, Elizabeth Warren is like, almost her face. Yeah. Like, I don't know what it was, what happened. I know she didn't have a stellar performance or anything, but it's like all of her supporters are just like, I didn't like her that much anyway, so we switched. There you go.
And if y'all have checked out our video, hey, speaking of checking out our videos, make sure you tweet this out, y'all. Let's get some people in here on this live stream. Share it on Facebook, whatever you gotta do.
You like to say that a lot. Tweet this out.
You got to. So, a lot of people, we were talking today, if you saw our video, about this whole Game of Thrones thing. And it's so true because these camps are really split. And then the people who say they're Warren supporters or whatever aren't really. The only ones that I actually see a lot of commitment out of is the burners. The burners
The burners, the Yang Gang, and they're committed to their candidate. And then everybody else is just like, well, I could go anywhere, but this is who I like. So eventually they'll all be in the Yang Gang.
My back is hurting standing up against this wall.
I'm sorry, I can't be taller. What's this big endorsement we keep hearing about? I don't know.
Listen.
I'm not at liberty to say. That's above my pay grade.
So Andrew will be here in,
I don't know what time it is. Hold on.
I bet Fred's
He
watching
should be
this.
here in 8 minutes.
Fred's watching this.
Fred. Hey, Fred. Fred.
Let's take a bet. You want to take a bet? I bet Fred is watching this. I bet Fred is one of the 148 people.
What do you want to bet?
Kiss.
What are you? Why are we talking about this? It's not about Andrew Yang. Okay, Andrew Yang. He's amazing.
So, and we listen. So we're kind of. Oh, we haven't even told them about the big news yet. Yes, we have really big news. As it pertains to our channel and our lives in general.
We shouldn't tell them our lives for anyway.
But I already started with them. But now you make me think maybe I should.
What do you think? You think we should tell you?
I don't know.
What if it doesn't happen? That's what I'm worried about.
Yo, but it is going to happen.
It's happening.
It's happening, yeah. It's up for sure. It's already set in stone.
What do y'all think? You want to hear it?
I heard his big endorsement is a household name. It is. Yeah, for sure. We're not talking about that.
No, we're not talking about that. Let's study that further. We should retrain all of the jobs in the future. That sounds bad.
Not when you dig into it. Because when you dig into it, what would you think that national retraining is what's the number of success rate? Is it Obama? I think Obama is coming soon. I think it is. Look.
0 to 15%. That's the answer.
I wonder how we're going to hear a variation on the stump speech tonight. So this is the first of 2 live streams. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, ding that bell. A lot of you already have because
awesome. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Lately having a lot with our subscribers seeing when we post a new video that is not showing up speak later. So the only thing I know to do would be to make sure you tap that bell icon so you get the notification like on your phone or your computer or whatever. Who uses computers? Phone, most likely. And it will notify you when we put up a video. At least it's supposed to.
That's a bunch of malarkey. There's a lot of people out there that still use computers. I'm one of them. My name is Joe Biden, and we are a no malarkey campaign. Y'all see us? That no malarkey bus. Come on, man. Oh.
Who says malarkey?
Oh, me. I still say malarkey. No. Show you around. Okay.
I got tired of looking at us.
You got tired of looking at us already? Damn. 151 people, 153 people in county. Let's take a look. There's a lot of Californians here.
Man, it's getting very crowded.
Getting very crowded.
I'm Dave. I live in Colorado and I live as a camp. And we flew in a bunch of folks from Florida and Connecticut. I missed the crap out of Keene while we got to get people to come here. So, yeah, write your names.
I'm Russell.
Russell, Dave, Elisa. There we go, Elisa.
Say hi to the Yang Gang.
Zephaniah?
Yes.
Zephaniah's in gross.
Always playing a game.
He's playing. Yeah, and we are live. Say hi to the Yang Gang.
So, I prefer not to be like publicly in anything, so you can edit me out. I want to be behind the scenes.
For sure.
Gotcha.
Canvasser.
Behind the scenes.
Behind the
Yeah,
scenes.
so don't include me in anything that's recorded.
All right. Too late. Whoops. Well, like now he tells me. I just told him he was live. Say hi to the Yang Gang.
Hey, y'all, cut that part out, okay?
Hey, y'all make sure you cut that part out, okay? Don't watch that part.
Don't look at that.
Don't look at it.
No.
When you get to that part, y'all fast forward it.
It's too late because now we're saying it.
Thanks so much, y'all.
Y'all saw nothing.
Y'all saw nothing. Exactly. See? Yang Gang already knows. We are like so demonetized on this video already because of all this music in the background, y'all.
Yep.
So if y'all can hit that super chat or one of those donation links if
And
y'all feel so inclined.
Yes. Also, in editing the stream later, I have no idea how to do that. I've never been able to figure it out.
What?
Editing a live stream after it's up, there should be a way to do it, but I haven't figured it out.
Well, you know what Andrew says. He says that every New Hampshire vote is worth 1,000 Californians. So we are, yeah, there's a lot of people here. This is going to be standing room only for a minute. Hey, and don't look at that guy behind the guy with the Yang shirt. Don't look at that guy.
Don't look at anybody. They might all not want to be on camera.
All right, we got to get rid of this guy. Hold on, y'all. All right, I had to get rid of somebody.
It's always the same people, and it's like, why be a troll? Like, what do you get out of that? It's not very satisfying. This is what y'all tune in for, him dancing. I know.
My dad dance, man. Y'all donate to my dad dance.
I'm just standing here like, I don't even know.
Yeah, no kid. Well, I mean, you know, he may have had good parents, man. I don't know. Some people just, yeah, that was a bunch of malarkey, y'all.
We actually have our Bitcoin address in our previous video. If you go in there, it'll be in the description.
Yeah, not this video, but go to any of our other videos, and that address will be in there.
Are you Steve?
Am I Steve? No, I am not Steve. What Steve are you looking for?
Maybe it's Steve, maybe some other guy. I'm looking for a contact point for Andrew. Is that you?
Oh, you want Steve Marchand? The guy with the bald head. Somebody was asking me if I was Steve Marchand. I look a little bit like him, don't I? Yeah, Little Yang Gang's right here.
What are you doing?
I'm filming these guys. Jim Varney. Look, that's not the first time I've gotten Jim Varney. Do I really look like that dude?
There's Lil Yang Gang playing with Minecraft toys and playing on a tablet right now. Keeping himself busy. He's
Little
playing
Yang
a
Gang.
game right now.
Little Yang Gang. Little Yang Gang. Little Yang Gang. Little Yang Gang.
He's laughing, but totally ignoring you. Nope.
Hazy Train. Stop being so negative. I'm not over here on the Democrat side for no reason. Fred the Felon, Steve, and me are triplets. Yeah, totally.
Y'all look nothing alike.
Great. Thank you, Diana. Every one of y'all being here. Why we only got 170 people on our live stream?
I think that's a pretty good number. Thanks all of y'all for being here.
Oh, yeah. That's not what I meant. Oh, Sriracha. Obviously, that's not what I meant. What I meant was we need to get it tweeted out there and shared out there.
I guess if all of our subscribers are watching right now, that would be over almost 9,000 people. Everybody should be watching, right?
Absolutely.
Who doesn't want to watch Andrew Yang give another speech? I can watch it a million times.
Look, somebody named Andrew Yang. I would laugh if that was really Andrew. That would be awesome. Well, I mean, he does follow us on Twitter. And if y'all don't follow us on Twitter, it's at VBoxReality and at Crystal's Lady. And we got a whole lot of people here, y'all. And I'm trying to keep that dude off the screen if you don't want to be on the screen. I'm really, really thirsty.
Oh, you said you need me to go over there and get something?
I don't know what that dude's
All right.
Oh, jeez.
Sorry, guys. I was going to ask if you can hear me.
Yes.
But if you cannot, you have bigger problems
No, we're going to
than if you can hear me. All right. How y'all doing tonight? All right, I got to get you warmed up. We're going to try it one more time. How are you all doing tonight? Yeah! All right, I'm Steve Marchand. I'm a New Hampshireite. I ran for governor last year. This just in, I did not win. Or else there'd be two large, burly security men near me. But one very nice silver lining of this is, it allowed me to discover Andrew Yang. Yeah! How many of you here would call yourself members of the Yang Gang already? Yeah! Is there anybody here, and you're with friends, all right? We love people. Humanity first. Yep. Anybody here Yang curious? Yes. Yes, all right. I like that. So there's two kinds of people in the world, I'm finding out. There's Yang Gang, and there's soon to be Yang Gang. Yep. And that's the two categories right there. That's everybody. So we appreciate all of you being here tonight. A round of applause, by the way, for the folks here at this fine establishment. Yeah. Thank you. I want you to get home safely, but I also would like you to drink a beer. And you need to find the line between those two statements. So please, they're opening up their facility here for us, and let's reward them. And then when you go home tonight, tell folks how much you want to come back again and bring friends next time. Real quick, Andrew Yang. So I met him in January, got some coffee, stuck around with him, and in late March, we did a tour of the North Country. And at the end of that, I realized that I was hanging out with a guy that I liked, not just because he was also a 44-year-old, first-generation American father of two who really likes math. No wonder we connected at the start. Then, the more I learned about what his vision for America was, the more I realized what I think hundreds of thousands of people have already found out since then. He is not trying to be president because it's been a dream of his for a long time. He is a father. He is a parent. He is a patriot. He realizes the path that this country is on if we do not express a willingness to make big change happen. And he was not accept the future that inaction would bring. Inaction is action. Indecision is a decision. If we as a party and as a country think that being content, think that the reason why Donald Trump got elected is because people just wanted to go back a few years in time. That is a fundamental misunderstanding about the times in which we live. And that it turns out the way that you provide the comparison, the way that you defeat an outsider who doesn't have his act together, is not by nominating an insider. It's by nominating an outsider who has his act together. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Andrew Yang. I was at a rally with him in New York City on a very rainy day, but it didn't stop thousands of people in Washington Park from coming out to see Andrew. That is just when he was beginning to catch fire. I remember when I first signed on with Andrew, a lot of my friends, I've been involved in politics about 20 years in this state. I've been a mayor in Portsmouth. I still live on the seacoast. As I mentioned, I ran for governor. I know a lot of people in political office on both sides of the aisle. And so people trust my judgment generally. And I said, I'm with Andrew Yang. And they were like, what? John Yang? No, not John Yang. I said, if you were watching MSNBC, you haven't heard of Andrew Yang. That's right. Though I believe that's beginning to change, and we have our friends in the media who are here. I see you. All right, there you go. Thank you, Julia. Here's the thing. When I went to that crowd in New York City, there were hundreds of people in there that were Trump supporters in 2016. They spoke with me after. I said, why are you here at this event? What has happened in the 2.5 years since you voted for Donald Trump? And this was the line that I remember and that I repeat anywhere I go, because I think it is at its core why Andrew is connecting with people that otherwise would not be interested in this Democratic primary. One gentleman who Donald said, here's the thing, Donald Trump was the wrong answer to the right question. Andrew Yang is the right answer to the right question. The question, how come people keep saying inflation is low, unemployment is low, stock market is high, GDP is high, and yet for the vast majority of Americans, there is no safety net when they're walking that tightrope. How come people tell us things are going so well? Well, I'll tell you, this is where they give me 8 seconds to finish up. And here's the thing, there's no ego in this because I know why you're here. You aren't here to hear Sky from the Seacoast. You are here because you want change to come to America. You are here because you're prepared for big change. You are here because you want to see the next president of the United States. Guess what? You get to, ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Yang.
Let me settle in. Yeah, it's a homemade math onesie. That's what I'm talking about. You know what that means? Lost revenue. I'll use a soapbox. Hello, Keene. It's so great to be back here in New Hampshire. Thank you so much. How many of you have seen me speak before? Let me get this in her hands. Wow, most of you have not. That's awesome. She definitely has not, because I would have remembered her. She could vote for my re-election. I'm just kidding. I'm running for president as a Democrat in 2020. How many of you know I went to high school here in the state? Yeah, right. Phillips Exeter Academy, 1992. So being here feels like a homecoming. I spent my adolescent years here. After I graduated,
On the picture.
yeah, I mean, made a T-shirt out of it. I went to Brown University for college, not that far from here in Rhode Island, and then I went on to become an unhappy lawyer for 5 months. Thought that was a disaster. Then I left to start an ill-fated business. How many of you have started a business or organization or club or a mailing list? So if you have your hand up, you know a couple things. One, it's a lot harder than anyone told you. And number two, when someone asks you how it's going, what do you say? Great. Great. Everything goes great until it doesn't. So in my case, my business went great till it failed. So I lost my investors all their money. My parents told people I was still a lawyer because they're Asian, and it was an easier story. I've been bitten by the bug, and I said, well, I need to get better at this somehow. And so I worked at another company, and then another, and then I became the CEO of an education company that grew to become #1 in the United States, and was bought by a bigger company in 2009. Now, 2009, I can't believe it was 10 years ago. Can you guys believe like the 10s are ending? We're about to enter the 20s in like a month. We're going to celebrate 2020 right here in New Hampshire. Then we're going to have a giant Yang Gang New Year's Eve celebration. So we have New Year's Eve plans coming out. We're going to subsidize the heck out of the booze. And it's going to be a very good value. Do we actually? Like, it's probably going to be in Manchester. Is that? You're all like, hey, Manchester, and you're like, oh. Ain't over there. Oh. So it was 10 years ago the financial crisis was in full bloom. How many of you were here in New Hampshire during the financial crisis 10 years ago? And so how was that time here in Keene or in the area? It was great. You got laid off? Country. And I thought I had some insight as to why the crisis had unfolded. It was because so many of these whiz kids I'd gone to Exeter and Brown and Columbia with had gone to Wall Street and created derivatives and exotic financial instruments and mortgage-backed securities. So I thought, what a train wreck. We have all these people doing this stuff that actually ended up bringing us this crisis. And so I imagined, well, what would you rather people do that would actually be productive? And so the vision I had was to try and start a business or help a business grow in places like Providence or Detroit or Cleveland or Baltimore or St. Louis or cities around the country. So how many of you have worked at a nonprofit or volunteered, something like that? If you don't have your hand up, you should at least pretend. You should be like, I volunteer for sure. I'm a good person. So in my case, I started a nonprofit to help train entrepreneurs to help business grow in different cities around the country. Called it Venture for America. I donated some money to start the org, and then I started calling rich friends with this question. Do you love America? And then the smart among them said, what does it mean if I say yes? And then I said, at least $10,000. And so 2 people said, I love America for $10,000. Grew to $1 million and then several million, and we helped create several thousand jobs around the country, 15 cities. Very proud of this work. We were recognized by the Obama White House. So I was invited to the White House to meet the president with my wife. So my wife got to meet the president. My in-laws were really happy for about a week. Like, look at these pictures. My daughter did okay. So I was being celebrated and upped on the back for my work with Venture for America, and I ran this organization for 7 years. Those of you who worked in nonprofits, you know what that work looks like. I appreciate people who work in nonprofits so much because it's the most idealistic, positive, pure work. But at the same time, like, it's really hard because you never have the resources you need to actually solve the problem, and you have to be continuously indefatigable and positive and grateful. You know what I mean? Like, no matter what someone does, you're just so grateful. And so I was getting clapped on the back for this work with Venture for America, but I had this sinking feeling that things were getting worse around the country. That for every job I was helping create, it was like pouring water into a bathtub that had a giant hole ripped in the bottom. And that jobs were just rushing out much faster than certainly my organization was creating them. And then Donald Trump became our president in 2016. You all remember that? Yeah, that was a tough night, wasn't it? You're watching that and we're like, whoa, what have we here? Now, if you were here tonight, you probably reacted negatively. I mean, I could tell from those reactions, a lot of you were surprised. What else were you? Horrified.
Scared.
Right, disgusted. But we all have family members or friends or neighbors who had the opposite reaction. They were really excited. They said, like, yeah, this is just what the country needed. And to me, it was a giant red flag where I said, no matter what, we have to reckon with the fact that tens of millions of our fellow Americans decided that taking a bet on the narcissistic T-star was the right way to go. In part because there's this concern that our government is not responsive to our needs and problems anymore, that the feedback mechanism is broken. And so people said, you know what? Like, Donald Trump cannot be worse than what we're dealing with right now. And if you turned on cable news today, why would you think that Donald Trump won in 2016? Russia. Republicans is probably a direct answer. So Russia's on the list. What else?
Job loss.
I wish it was more centered on job loss. That made me happier.
We're not going anywhere.
No, so according to cable news, what do they think? Russia, emails, Hillary Clinton, Facebook, the FBI. Oh, wow. You watch a different cable news network right now. So you get this set of explanations from the news programs, but to me, I'm a numbers guy, and the numbers tell a story where we automated away 4 million manufacturing jobs that were primarily based where? Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Missouri, Iowa, all the swing states that Trump won. And you all actually lost tens of thousands of manufacturing jobs right here in New Hampshire. It just happened a little bit earlier. It happened a couple of decades ago in the north of the state where a bunch of your mills started closing. And a lot of those areas were devastated and did not recover. And I spent 7 years working in Michigan, Ohio, and Missouri, and I saw that they also have not recovered from the loss of these millions of manufacturing jobs. And unfortunately, what we did to those jobs, we're now doing other jobs around the economy. How many of you noticed stores closing around where you live here in New Hampshire? And why are those stores closing? Amazon, one word answer, right? Amazon's hooking up $20 billion in business every single year. How much did Amazon pay in taxes last year? Zero. So that is the math, New Hampshire. $20 billion. He's looking at me like, is that right? He's like, that can't be right. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Refund.
$20 billion in this every year, and they paid zero in federal taxes last year. That's not unusual. They pay zero and near zero in taxes most every year. Most common job in New Hampshire is retail clerk. The average retail clerk is a 39-year-old woman making between $9 and $10 an hour. So if 30% of your Main Street stores and malls close, what is her next move going to be after the store closes? Welfare? Yeah, like it's somewhat unclear. McDonald's, how many of you have seen a self-serve kiosk in a McDonald's or fast food restaurant? Yeah, they're going to be in every McDonald's in the country in the next 2 years, 2021.
Horrible.
Food service and food preparation, third most common job in the economy. And it's not just McDonald's, and it's not just the front of the house. They're actually starting to target the back of the house. Get some robot burger flippers and fry cookers and the rest of it.
That's my first job.
That was your first job, right?
Where is my
Where is your first job? Right. Yeah, my first job, I was a busboy at a Chinese restaurant. And that's probably still a job. I don't think they're automating that away. So you ask, if you're observing, you're like, busboy, not waiter? And, and it's true because my Chinese was too poor to translate food orders to the kitchen. And so that was the test to be a waiter. It's like if you tell me chicken and broccoli and I can actually write that stuff in Chinese and give it to the kitchen, I couldn't do that. So they were like, busboy. True story. Yeah, I feel strengths and weaknesses as a busboy. So weaknesses Chinese, strengths English. I'd help people out. Literally, like their kids went to school with me, so they'd be like, "Hey, you're my kid's stuff." Like, that's right. Anyway, other strength. I had a driver's license, and most of the other workers did not. So one time, the boss said, "Hey, you can drive," and he gave me the keys to the bus to refuel, and it was the most terrifying, 10 minutes of life driving that bus to refuel it because I was 16, 17 years old driving a bus. You don't want to say no to the boss. The boss was like, refuel this thing. And I was like, okay. So, I take the bus out of the road, terrified of killing somebody. I come back an hour later, and he was like, why did it take you so long? And I was like, because I drove 5 miles an hour. Anyway, So that was my first job. The question is, what happens to the first job of the future? When the fast food jobs get automated away. When you all call the customer service line of a big company and you get the software, you probably do the same thing I do. You dial 000, say human, right? Human. How do I do that? Yeah, we all do that. Because that software is terrible. You're like, how's it going? What can I do for you? It'll be fast, seamless, a little bit sexy, perhaps. You might not even need software. What's that going to mean for the 2.5 million call center workers in the United States who make $14 an hour right now? I talked to 70 CEOs in New York City and I asked, how many of you are looking at replacing your back office clerical workers with AI and software? Guess how many hands went up out of 70? All of them, all 70. The fact is you could fire that CEO if he didn't have his hand up. And I say his, most of them were guys. But we have a system essentially where if they are not actively looking to replace those workers with a cheaper alternative, then they get fired because they get just judged by the bottom line every single year. So these are the changes that drove many people to vote for Donald Trump. And the biggest coming down the pike is self-driving trucks. How many of you all know a trucker here in New Hampshire? Driving a truck is the most common job in 29 states in this country. There are 3.5 million truckers. Average age 49, 94% men. So that probably resembles the truckers you know. And my friends in California are working on trucks that can drive themselves. The reason why they're so eager to have self-driving trucks is for the money. $168 billion a year in cost savings if they can automate away truck driving. And UPS has already invested. There are already robot trucks on the road in Arizona. Now, why Arizona? Because the robot trucks are really bad with snow. They're not testing them here in New Hampshire. This would be a very bad day for the robot trucks. That's one reason why they're always testing them in Arizona and Southern California, because the weather is very clear. But $168 billion a year is such a staggering amount of money that they're right now working on something called teleoperating equipment, where to have a robot truck function in weather like this, their plan is to beam a teleoperator into the truck and have them drive it like a video game from a warehouse in Nevada or Arizona. And they'll just be looking out of video cameras in the front of the truck. And this sounds impossible, but it's hand in hand with the adoption of 5G equipment. So 3G was when we could watch TV on our phones. Remember that? Yeah. The first time we did that, you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. So now we're at a point 5G where latency is essentially near zero, so they can actually beam someone in from across the country into the truck and drive it like a video game if the truck's not sure what to do, and then beam back out when the truck feels like it's confident again. What do you think the ratio is going to be between teleoperators in Nevada and Arizona and the 3.5 million truckers who currently drive a truck?
1 to 100.
1 to 100, 2 to 100. It's not going to be 1 to 1. It's talking about like 3.5 million people sitting in a warehouse being like, is there a truck that needs me? It's true. It's like, this is the economy that we're operating in. So what's that going to mean for the 3.5 million truckers or the 7 million plus Americans who work in truck stops, motels, and diners that will rely on the truckers getting out and having a meal every day? Think about the ripple effects. About 1 in 10 jobs in Nebraska, as an example, support trucking. What happens when the trucks just don't stop in Nebraska anymore? Because the robot trucks can drive 24/7. And imagine your friend who's a trucker right now who probably is a small business owner or a part of a small business. That small business owner took out tens of thousands of dollars in loans to get the truck. And imagine having that truck and then seeing a robot truck on the highway that never needs to stop. And if you're a human driver, you need to stop after 14 hours to get out and take a nap, or because that's the law. Like the truck will actually stop driving after 14 hours and force you to get out. So this is, to me, the biggest change coming down the pike. We're in the third inning of the greatest economic transformation in the history of our country, what experts are calling the fourth industrial revolution. When is the last time you heard a politician say the words fourth industrial revolution?
Only you.
Just now. And I'm barely a politician, New Hampshire. My first move was not to run for president of the United States because I'm not insane. I've got a family. It's like, hey, I see what happens. Trump wins. We scapegoat immigrants for problems immigrants have next to nothing to do with. It's a straight technology automation problem. We blasted away these millions of manufacturing jobs, and we're now eating through retail and call centers and fast food and eventually transportation. And so I went to our folks in DC and I said, what are we going to do? And what do you think the folks in DC said to me when I said, what are we going to do? It's really a fun exercise, right? You go, it's like, what do the folks do? Now, so the three big answers I got. Number one, we cannot talk about that, Andrew. That's verbatim. That's leadership. Number two, we should study this further. And number three, we must educate and retrain all Americans for the jobs of the future. And that last one, how many of you heard a politician say that last one? Yeah, that sounds pretty good, right? You're like, oh. But then, do you all want to guess how effective the government-funded retraining programs were for the manufacturing workers who lost their jobs in the Midwest? Yeah, I'm anchoring you low. Who said 8? Yeah, that's a good guess, because you know it's out. It's 0 to 15 cents. The programs are a total dud. And we're not like infinitely retrainable widgets. We're human beings. You know, you take a 50-year-old manufacturing worker and say, "I'm here to retrain you." It's like, well, this is going to work, and then you do it, and then you get a certificate, and then they walk away. And like, what's the job that awaits you after you get the certificate? Nothing. The success rates of these retraining programs are very, very low. And you see the results in communities that have lost their manufacturing job base, where drug overdoses and suicides have skyrocketed to record levels, not just here in New Hampshire, but around the country, to the point where our life expectancy has declined for 3 years in a row, the first time in 100 years that has happened. The last time our life expectancy declined 3 years in a row was the Spanish flu of 1918, a global pandemic that killed millions. We are back in Spanish flu territory right now because of suicide and drug overdoses in the United States of America. So our leaders in DC wanting to do this literally told me to, pound rocks, more or less. And one person said something to me that brought me here to you all in New Hampshire. He said, Andrew, none of us is going to do anything about this in DC because fundamentally this is not a town of leaders, this is a town of followers. And the only way we will do anything about it is if you create a wave in other parts of the country and bring that wave crashing down on our heads. And I heard this and I said, challenge accepted. I'll be back with the wave. And New Hampshire, believe it or not, you all are the wave. You all are the people that are going to rewrite the rules of the 21st century so that Amazon's not paying zero in taxes, so that we're actually participating in all the gain. They're getting sucked up by these technology companies. Now, what does the wave look like? I stand before you today. I'm in 5th place in the country in most recent polls. It's like me or Kamala. And we all know Kamala, unfortunately, is going the other direction. Yeah. I say unfortunately, I'm like friendly with Kamala. I'm friendly with most of the other candidates. I'll tell you all, one of the most touching moments of the campaign for me was when Bernie told a journalist that he liked me. And I was like, Bernie likes me? It's like the greatest thing ever. And so then when I said to Bernie at the next debate, I was like, oh, thank you for saying you liked me. And then he put his arm around me and says, of course I like you, Andrew. You've got a lot of good ideas to the table. And I was like, the greatest. I was like, I feel like my uncle, just like, just put his arm around me. So I'm 5th in the polls right now and rising because I've identified the real problems that are plaguing us, and I'm proposing real solutions that would actually move us forward. And I know the first time you heard the solutions, you were like, hey, there's an Asian guy running for president who wants to give everyone $1,000 a month. Yeah. Remember that? Yeah. And the first time you heard that, you said, wow, that sounds like a gimmick. But this is not my idea. Paine was for this at the founding of the country. He called it the citizens' dividend. Martin Luther King championed this in the 1960s, called it the guaranteed minimum income. And it is what he was fighting for all Americans when he was assassinated in 1968. I actually had the pleasure of meeting with Martin Luther King's son in Atlanta after the last debate, Martin Luther King III, and he said, this is the wildest thing about that conversation. When he referred to Martin Luther King, he actually just called him Dad. He said, Dad said this. Dad believed in that. And I was like, holy crap, Martin Luther King was your dad. And then I was like, I guess that makes sense, because your name's literally Martin Luther King III. Literally meeting with you because you're his son. But he said, look, this was Dad's vision. that we needed to set a foundation for all Americans as guaranteed minimum income. He didn't say a particular group, he said all Americans. And then one state actually passed a dividend where now everyone in that state gets between $1,000 and $2,000 a year, no questions asked, today. And what state is that, New Hampshire?
Alaska.
And how do they pay for it?
Oil.
And what is the oil of the 21st century?
Technology.
Technology, AI, big data. Our data is now worth more than oil. Checks go. They went to Facebook, Amazon, Google, and the rest of the big tech companies are just sucking it up. They sell and resell our data to the tune of billions, and we don't see a dime. We all made the same deal. I made the same deal. Don't worry about it. It's like you signed up for the thing, and you were like, this is free. That's great. It's not free, honestly. You know, like how the heck are these companies worth hundreds of billions of dollars if it's free? The answer is that they're actually monetizing our attention and we're outgunned. Like how many of us act I agree and consent form before you hit I agree and consent? No one reads stuff. You know what I mean? Of course not. It'd be ridiculous to read it. So you hit agree and consent and you essentially just hope for the best. You just hope nothing too bad happens as a result, right? I actually am very curious about this. When you think that your has been hacked because there's a headline that says like, hey, like, who got hacked or Crate and Barrel got hacked, how many of you actually change your passwords? Some of them. No, raise your hands. And then the rest of us are like, well, I only bought some comforters on that site. Like, it wouldn't be so bad. It's like, they're like, if they got hacked, like, they don't know anything too bad. I guess, like, you know, my credit. I mean, that's the world we live in right now. And it's gotten to such an extreme where there's this massive imbalance. The darkest thing is, how many of y'all are parents like me? Some of you are too young to be parents, but if you're a parent like me, then you know how outgunned we are by the technology companies because our kids and grandkids are getting mesmerized by these devices and smartphones. And I talked to the folks in Silicon Valley. You know who are the best at having their kids not use technology? The people in Silicon Valley. They're like, no screens anywhere near my kids. Because the engineers of Silicon Valley know that they're getting paid millions of dollars to turn supercomputers into dopamine delivery devices and slot machines for teenagers and kids. I mean, that's the society we live in right now. And then we say, hey, it's for the parent to figure that out. I'm a parent. Like, I know it's impossible for us to somehow protect our kids from every influence, and screen, especially because when your kid's on the screen, you're like, hey, stop doing that, we're eating or whatever it is. But half the time you're on the screen yourself because you're an adult and you have a job that requires you to answer emails all the time. And so it's like, it's impossible for you to police your kid when you're on the thing too. So we have to counterbalance this to make it so that technology actually respects our humanity. And right now, you know what technology respects? One thing, the bottom line, that's the money. Why are they maximizing the engagement on these devices? Because that's how their stock market price goes up. It's user engagement, it's advertising money, it's their stock market price. And our government is 24 years behind the curve on technology. How can I be so precise when I say 24 years? We got rid of the Office of Technology Assessment in 1995. Think about that for a second. There used to be an office that advised Congress on technology issues, and they eradicated it in 1995 because I guess they thought we'd invented everything. No, so if you think government's flying blind on technology, we 100% are. You know how we get advice on technology issues? From the technology companies. That's how dumb it is. That's how bought and sold our government is. So the wave that helps rewrite the rules of the 21st century economy to work for us starts right here. The first big step is actually making us all shareholders and participants in this economy and putting some of the gains into our hands in the form of this dividend of $1,000 a month. It seems dramatic, but after you get $1,000 a month into your hands, how are you actually going to spend the money in real life? To go beer only, right? Here in Branch and Blade. How many people are going to come here a little more often?
Yeah, but then the waitress makes money.
Exactly. No, I'm not complaining. I'm presenting this as a very virtuous example. Daycare, college loans, car you've been putting off, shoes, start a business. How much of it would stay right here in New Hampshire? Most all of it. Not all of it, obviously. You get your own Netflix password finally because you're tired. So some would load up. Most of it would stay right here in New Hampshire. It's going to go to daycare and little league science. Businesses mentally productive, help value the kind of work that goes on in our homes and families. I talk about my wife who's at home with our 2 boys, one of whom is autistic. How much does her work count at in today's economy according to GDP measurements? Zero. And we know that's nonsense. We know that that's among the most important and challenging and difficult work there is. I was off the road caring for our kids for a couple of days. You know what I said after a couple of days?
Where's the wife?
Yeah, really. Why was she? I said, get me back to running for president because that's a lot easier. And I mean, I love hanging out with the kids and I miss them dearly. But like, it's really difficult work. Very, very difficult, punishing work. And women get this double whammy where you don't even get credit for those years, and then you know what happens? Your Social Security benefits are lower because it's like, oh, I didn't work that time. And so, it's like the whole thing is messed up. It's anti-family. It's anti-woman. So rewriting the rules includes actually valuing the work that we're doing. Right now you have this market measurement that is turning against us on an unprecedented historic scale. And it's turning us against each other. You can't pay your bills. 78% of us are living paycheck to paycheck. Half of us can't afford an unexpected $500 bill. And then someone says, hey, it's someone else's fault. You're like, all right, I guess it's their fault. It's no one's fault. It's the fact that this economy is now working against us. We have to make it work for us. And the magical thing about it is that you in New Hampshire can make it just like that. That's the power of this place. This is one of the only places in the entire country where democracy actually functions the way it's intended. Where if enough of you get together, and the wild thing about it is it doesn't even take that many of you. I did the math. Do you know how many Californians each New Hampshire voter is worth? 1,000 each. That's right. What's the fire code in here? Let's call it 100. So there are 99 people here in this room. That's like 99,000 Californians. That's 2.5 football stadiums of Californians. That's the power of this place. That's why I love campaigning here. Each one of you is worth your own gold in terms of your impact on the direction of the country. That's why, how many presidential candidates have each of you seen? Go ahead and raise your hands, like 5, 10. First? Oh, thanks, man. Thanks for saying hello to that. Yeah, 5, 10. 18? Oh, nice work. So why are we all here over and over again? It's because we know the power that you have. It does not take that many of you to actually set this country off in a new direction. I'm actually going to take it a step further. It's a massive responsibility. It's an obligation. You have to take the country forward as quickly as possible so we can catch up to the changes in our society. And if you don't do this, then we are lost. We are stuck. We have another 4 years of the stores closing and the AI getting smarter and the self-trucks getting closer to the highways and the fast food restaurants becoming more and more mechanized. Like, it's all happening around us. We see it in our CVS and ours. We saw it happen to the manufacturing plants, and now it's going to start ripping through the most common jobs in our society. So what starts out as relatively dramatic seeming actually becomes inevitable and necessary very, very quickly when you start digging into it. This is the vision of a trickle-up economy that you can make real as quickly as possible. And I'm going to say there's no one else to make it real. You are it. There's no other New Hampshire, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, if you're not into it, then we're going to go. No, I mean, it is you all. That's the joy of being here. Because I feel like when I'm here, for me, it's so much fun because I feel like I'm revisiting my adolescence, my past, because I went to high school here and the rest of it. But I also feel very strongly that the future is being made in rooms like this, in conversations like this. And the fact that the reality that you see around you is actually right. You know what I mean? And it's only just going to keep heading in this darker and darker direction unless we rewrite the rules. So this foundation is step one. Step two is actually changing the economic measurements correspond to what we are doing. So again, corporate profits, records, life expectancy going down. Which is more important? Like, pretty obvious, right? Or if you're a parent, what's your name?
Yeah, like the bird.
No, so if you're a parent, then you know that how rent is doing is much, much more important than whatever the GDP number is. And you're not going to believe this, but we can actually upgrade our economic statistics instantaneously. As your president, I will go to the Bureau of Economic Analysis and say, hey, GDP, 100 years old, really out of date, and even the inventor of GDP 100 years ago said this is a terrible measurement of national well-being and we should never use it as that. And here we are 100 years later following it off a cliff. Robot trucks are great for GDP, they're going to be terrible for people. How many of you all have run a business or organization? Imagine if you had the wrong measurements for that organization. How's that organization going to do over time? Not well. Not well. That is where this country is right now. We're riding 3 measurements off a cliff. Those 3 measurements are GDP, stock market prices, and headline unemployment. So GDP I've talked about a little bit. Stock market prices, the bottom 80% of Americans own 8% of stock market wealth, and the bottom 50% zero. So why would you be trumpeting an index fact that 94% of new jobs are temp, gig, or contract jobs that don't have benefits, that 40% of recent college graduates, which I suspect resemble some of you in this room, I get like a young people vibe from the census, 40% of recent college graduates are doing a job that does not require a college degree, and that working 2 or 3 jobs is increasingly normal. I was just with a teacher who talked about how teachers regularly do a second job. I think that's actually the perfect measuring stick. If teachers have to work a second job, you are screwing up on a mammoth scale. 100 years old, we're going to update it to include our mental health and freedom from substance abuse, our childhood success rates, wellness and life expectancy. How about clean air and clean water? You can actually build economic sustainability into your measurements. And I was just talking to the editorial board over the Keene Sentinel about this. The tug-of-war on climate change, the real problem is the measurement problem. Because right now, if you go to many Americans, unfortunately, you say, first, how many of y'all are worried about climate change? Yeah, that means it's a smart room. If you don't have your hand up, you probably should. That's another thing you probably should raise your hand for. So, a lot of Americans, unfortunately, when you say, hey, we need to address climate change, what they hear is higher cost, inconvenience, and fewer jobs. That's what they hear. And if 78% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, if you're living paycheck to paycheck and someone says to you, we need to fight climate change, a very natural reaction is to say, I can't pay next month's rent. I can't worry about 10 years from now. So the problem is a measurement problem because right now people think it, quote unquote, costs money to fight climate change. The truth is, you know what costs a lot of money? Cost of climate change, how many dollars is climate change going to cost us? Trillions, easy. And unfortunately, it's going to cost lives too. It's going to cost thousands of American lives. So if you factor in the cost of climate change or doing nothing, then all of a sudden, everything we do to invest in climate change actually helps improve our economic indicators. In economic terms, climate change is what's called an externality, which is something that's not being measured by the actual firm's numbers, but is out there. And so if you actually include the externality, then all of a sudden it changes all of your numbers very, very quickly. It means that if you're a fossil fuel company, instead of minting all this money, there's actually a massive cost associated with your emissions. So updating our measurements, it sounds kind of wonky and nerdy, but it's actually fundamental. And it puts an end to the tug-of-war that we're trapped in, where you think, oh, like, how are we going to pay for this? How are we going to pay for this? And if there's one thing I want you to remember from this conversation tonight, the biggest lie in American life today is that we don't have the money. Do you remember anyone... First, do you remember voting for the $4 trillion bailout of Wall Street 10 years ago? No. No, you didn't vote for that? No. You didn't get like the, hey, do you want to do this? Do you remember them complaining where we going to get the money to bail out Wall Street to the tune of $4 trillion? Remember that? Also, I was so horrified by what we did in the financial crisis. I quit my job and spent 7 years helping create thousands of jobs as the head of a nonprofit. Because I said, this is so corrupt, so venal, so immoral, that I actually need, I need to get away from this and try and demonstrate what we should be doing, on a human level. But there was never any complaint about where money came from, when Wall Street was concerned. And then when we're going around saying, look, we need to get the economy, the myth we're being sold is that we do not have the money. There's one thing you can remember from this conversation. We're the wealthiest, most advanced economy in the history of the world. We're up to $21 trillion in annual value. We can easily afford $1,000 a month for every American if we get the $1 trillion tech companies like Amazon and the gang to pay their fair share. Especially because when the money's in our hands, it doesn't disappear. It just goes back into our economy, makes our businesses stronger, makes our families healthier. That's the virtuous cycle of the trickle-up economy that you all can make real as quickly as possible. So I hope that this vision feels vital and compelling to you all, because that is the mission of this cycle, this campaign, 2020. We are decades behind the curve, and it has gone from being dangerous to catastrophic because the rate of change has picked up so fast and our government is so far behind the curve. And having spent some time in DC, it's even worse. Not only are they behind the curve, they are disconnected and they do not care. They don't. Because the fact is, if the people suffer, nothing happens to them. Their jobs do not change, their livelihoods do not shrink, their money does not disappear. Like, they get paid no matter what. Most of the country looks up and sees our pipes clogged with money and they think they can do nothing about it. And they are correct, New Hampshire. They can do nothing about it, but you all can. You are the only ones who can. You came here on this like wintry afternoon, you're like, oh man, like this guy just gave me the future of the country. He said, like, it's up to me. It is up to you. We have to accelerate our economy and our society as quickly as possible to actually match up to the challenges of 2019 and 2020. Donald Trump said he was going to make America great again, and what did Hillary Clinton say in response?
America's already great.
America's already great. Remember that? That didn't work out. We have to acknowledge the reality and severity of the problems, and we need real solutions. What were Donald Trump's solutions? He said we're going to build a wall, we're going to turn the clock back, we're going to bring the old jobs back. New Hampshire, you know that we have to do the opposite of these things. We have to turn the clock forward. We have to accelerate our economy and society as quickly as possible. We have to evolve in the way we think about ourselves and our work and our value. And I'm the ideal candidate for that job because the opposite of Donald Trump is an Asian man who likes snacks. Yeah, What does MAT stand for, New Hampshire?
Make America think harder.
Make America think harder. That's right. That is your job, New Hampshire. We got to make America see the real problems and advance real solutions. For those of you who are really into politics, raise your hand if you're really into politics. So if you're really into politics, you get a sense. This campaign is one of the only growth stories in the field, where we raised $750,000 2 days ago, just in one day. We raised $10 million last quarter in increments of only $30 each, so my fans are almost as cheap as Bernie's. This is a very cheap and wholesome gang to join. But there's zero corporate PAC money. This is purely grassroots, a movement of the people. The companies would not have sent me. I'm like a terrible emissary for them, you know what I mean? I'd be like, oh, let's send the random Asian guy no one's ever heard of. This'll work. I don't owe anyone anything. And I'm not running for president because I really had some deep-seated desire to be president. Because again, I'm not insane. I'm a parent, and I have seen the mess we are leaving for our kids, and it is not something I'm willing to accept. You shouldn't accept it either. You should, if you're a young person, you should be angry. And if you're a parent, you should be angry because we have left our kids such a disaster, such a shambles, and we have to knit it together and restore it as quickly as possible. It's going to take very big moves because we've let it disintegrate for years, for decades. But I'm purely going to do what I believe is the right thing. I don't owe anyone aside from my supporters that. And I know all my supporters just want me to do the right thing anyway. So this is the campaign that can rewrite the rules, but we need your help. And now what's the ask here? Really the ask is nothing more than just a vote and tell your friends. Because if you're here in New Hampshire, everyone you know is worth 1,000 people too. All your neighbors, all your friends, all your family members, you all have this magic power to you. And so if you someone and say, hey, I saw this guy speak, he was actually really interesting, you should, and then you make that connection, that actually is how the change occurs. It does not take that many of you to change the history of this country, and we need you to set us on a new way forward as quickly as possible. Thank you very much, Keene. We'd love to take the questions. Love it. Yeah, so questions, sure.
Yeah, so Native Americans in this country potentially have the most uncovered racism, being the group that's most likely to go without a reliable source of water or electricity. Reservations hold the highest levels of drug overdoses, domestic violence, and then hospitals and reservations have a colloquial phrase that's if you're going to get sick, you do it by the start of the year because we're not going to have money after June. So my question is, there's been a lot of, the only talk of the president in regards to Native Americans has been we're going to go right for Native American property with the wall. Your plans to make some reparations for the Native Americans in the country, particularly those that make them have discrimination as opposed to other groups of people in the country.
When I was a kid, I grew up reading all these Native American biographies of chiefs. I don't know if anyone else did that. Is that a thing our kids still do? And they all seem to end the same way. So we certainly owe a massive debt to Native Americans that we displaced. And we should not be talking about them in terms of building a wall through their land, that's for sure. A lot of this is around trying to, again, gear our economy towards our own well-being, and that includes Native American populations if they'd like. And so instead of seeing keeping people strong and healthy as a cost, we should see it as an investment and something that's vital to our future. Some of my thinking around this freedom dividend is actually born of Native American communities, because there have been some Native American communities that have opened casinos and they've taken that money and they've given it to their families. And in some ways, it's like a perfect XY study as to what happens when people get money around this level. And the data is so clear and compelling, where families get stronger and healthier, kids graduate from high school at higher levels. And as a parent, you'd appreciate this. The quality that they saw increase in Native American families that got money was something called conscientiousness. And you think of conscientiousness, what is that? It means that when you do something right, then good things happen, and if you don't do something right, then bad things happen. And in Native American households that didn't have this money, then they weren't conscientious because they did something right, nothing good happened. And so when they got the money, it actually made their kids more conscientious, which correlated to success in life. So I think we can learn something from at least some of these communities in the way they treat members of the tribe, but I would invest in those communities to try and get them up to the level of the entire country, and then try and move the entire country in the right direction. I like to go man, woman on this, so if there's any woman who has a question, that would be Grant. Oh, right there.
So I'm an accountant, and I really want to understand the value-added tax more, how that would work on corporations. And the second part of the question would be, it's really important to think about how we're going to raise revenue to pay for the things that we want to do in the community.
Yeah.
But I also want to know if there are any plans that you have to kind of trim the fat on government spending. I have a lot of family members that work for the government, and when I hear the stories about, needless spending that goes on and just poor financial decisions, like, renting the same building for 40 years when they could have owned it by that point, it just makes me a little crazy. So I'm curious if you have any thoughts on that.
I love the CPA question, because she's like, you signed a 40-year lease on that building, and you could have owned it for half the price. She sounds like a very good accountant. If anyone needs an accountant, you should probably go to her. She'd save you some money. I'll start with the government spending issue. I've run businesses and organizations, and to me, we've got both a revenue problem and an expense problem. So the revenue problem is you have trillion-dollar tech companies like Amazon siphoning off tens of billions of dollars of value and paying zero in taxes, and that cannot happen. And the number two, is there waste in our system? Of course, there's a ton of waste in our system. We spend trillions of dollars a year, and you know that there's a lot of waste in there. So you have to attack both problems. And so this is where the value-added tax comes in. If you saw a couple of the debates, I think 2 debates ago, I ended up getting in a little bit of a discussion with Elizabeth Warren about the wealth tax, because she's like, hey, if we ratchet up the wealth tax, we can pay for a lot of stuff. And I agree with the spirit of that because we're in this extreme winner-take-all economy. But when you looked at other countries who implemented the wealth tax, Germany, France, Sweden, Denmark, they all repealed it because it did not generate the revenue they hoped it would, and there were massive compliance and implementation problems. And so I think the same would be true here in the US. The rich people in the US are not substantively different than the rich people in Sweden, Denmark, France, and Germany. But if you look at these other countries, they all have a value-added tax because they figured out that's a way to keep the Amazons of the world from getting, zero in taxes. So the way the value-added tax works, and one reason I love it so much, is that you can actually turn up the dial on things like artificial intelligence and yachts and luxury watches that you're like, yeah, like if you increase that value-added tax significantly, it's not as big a deal. And you could exempt or lighten it on things like diapers and toilet paper and eggs, like consumer staples that are actually the stuff of life. But even a conservative estimate of a value-added tax in the US, because our economy is up to 21 trillion, shows that you generate 800 billion or so in new revenue very quickly with even a mild value-added tax that's half the level of Europe. If there is a point in the expenditures I would target, it is the military-industrial complex. We're spending $700 billion a year or so on some things that are not making us substantively safer at this point. And so, to me, the obvious need in our economy is infrastructure. I would try and redirect some of the military defense spending towards infrastructure because it creates many of the similar types of jobs and has a much higher economic output over time. I love this CPA question. Yeah, sir.
Perhaps the most grievous example of crypto-capitalism is the immoral increase in cost in prescription medications. What is your plan to roll that back?
I think the most egregious example of klepto-capitalism is the opiate crisis, because that was initiated by drug companies that were profiting to the tune of billions of dollars, and it ended up still killing thousands of Americans every month, 8 Americans an hour. And so I agree with you, the drug companies are like almost a special category of firms in terms of the fact that they'll use economic incentives to justify reprehensible behavior. And there are many seniors who have to make impossible choices between rationing drugs and being able to pay for like rent or heat. So I've got a 4-part plan to bring down prescription drug prices very, very quickly. Number one, you maybe do believe this because you know how bad things are. The U.S. government is not allowed to negotiate for lower drug prices right now because the drug lobby is so powerful. They said, hey, can't negotiate lower drug prices. So that to me is like obvious move number one, say, of course we can negotiate lower drug prices. Number two, right now we pay 2, 3, 4, or 5 times as much for drugs as citizens of other countries, even though we actually paid to develop the drugs. Isn't that the most messed up thing you've ever heard? They're like gouging us at the highest level. So one, we can negotiate for lower prices. Number two, you cannot charge us more than you charge citizens of other countries. That alone would actually save us hundreds of billions very, very quickly. Number three, if you cannot abide by 1 and 2, then we actually have the right to forcibly license your drug and manufacture it, which is number 4. And number 5, if you actually continue to abuse it, we actually can import drugs from other countries. So that would introduce price competition very, very quickly for the drug companies. Do you think this plan would work?
Yeah.
This is the only plan that would work because the drug companies only know one language. It's just money. It's just dollars and cents. Like, you can say, hey, do the right thing. Of course they're not going to do the right thing. They're just going to say, like, yeah, I'll just make as much money as I can and pay whatever fine you have. So if you make it so it actually hurts their profits, then it'll change their behavior very quickly. And I can already hear the lobbyists complaining. You know what they're going to complain about? They're going to say, President Yang, if you do this, then we're not going to have the money to invest in vital innovation and life-saving new drugs. And I'm going to say that is total nonsense because you don't invest in that stuff now. Because they don't. They used to have armies of PhDs in labs trying to come up with new compounds, but they decided that was too hard. So they stopped doing it. Now the way they get their new compounds is they wait for a startup to develop the drug, and then when it gets to the FDA pipeline, they buy it for 40 cents on the dollar, and then they make the money on the difference. So I will say to them, it's like, look, if your profit margins come down, it will have zero impact on the pipeline of innovative new drugs. And I know this in part because a friend of mine actually dug through the numbers. I'm a numbers guy. I'm like, I should be friends with you. You're a numbers person too. So we have, if you're not a numbers person, I want to be friends with you too. Don't get me wrong. There are people who wear math hats who hate math. Yeah.
That's like my whole life.
But a friend of mine who's a numbers person went through the drug company's numbers and was like, this is insane how much they're profiteering and price gouging. She said it was so nuts that she actually is betting against the stocks of those companies, and then she donated my campaign to make it right, because she's an American, and she said this is totally unconscionable. So that's how we get the drug prices under control. You just have to meet force with force, because they know no other language but the bottom line. One other question, yes?
This is a very unsexy question. You're utterly likable, utterly convincing. You're humanizing all of these issues in a very real way here in person. Do you have a plan for the next time that you're on a debate stage? To get more time on camera and to humanize these issues in the same way, to get the rest of the people to see how deeply you have thought about some of these issues, because I think there is tens of thousands of people in this country who still think of you just as the minimum wage guy, the minimum.
The free money guy.
Yeah. They think of you as a $1,000 guy, and they don't know about, your stance on, like you're talking about the ratio of truck drivers to virtual truck drivers. You're talking about, the drug companies. You're talking about Silicon Valley keeping their kids off screens. You're humanizing all of these issues in a very real way here with us. But most of the country hasn't heard you do that.
I agree. Well, thank you. I mean, there's implicit praise in that. So I felt like it was quite sexy as a question. That'll be another lesson from tonight. It's like, apparently that's like the categories. I'm happy to say that our impact on the debate stage has not corresponded to airtime, where there was a debate where I spoke the least and we raised the most of any candidate and had the most website traffic and everything else. And I think that we're going to get more airtime in this coming debate, in part because the organizations that are calling it. And one thing I've been blown away by is that the journalists have a significant amount of influence as to the shape of the debate. As the field shrinks too, we're going to get more and more time. As you probably know, that it's like a couple of the candidates are going to drop out. So what we're doing, we think, will work as long as we keep taking advantage of the opportunities we have as the field shrinks. And one of the pieces of guidance I've gotten is that it's only after you gain a certain level of stature as a candidate that you're allowed to contrast yourself more heavily with other candidates. Because other than that, it seems sort of like you're just sort of like throwing rocks at someone above you. The goal now is to get on even footing and then really differentiate me from the other candidates. Thank you for the opportunity, because the debates have been a tremendous upside play for us every single time, but we know we can do more. So thank you. All right, let's make it fast.
Okay, two quick ones.
Then we'll do some selfies.
So freedom dividend, as president, how often would you revisit what the actual monthly?
Oh, it's pinned to inflation.
Pinned to inflation, okay.
So it'd be like 1,000 the first year, and then probably like 1,020 the second, assuming 2% inflation.
And then would you put anything in motion to guarantee that for Ren when she, hits working age and long beyond the Yang presidency?
Well, one of the things I'm so excited about is that when they put the oil dividend in Alaska, in effect 40 years ago, I want you to imagine, like, after the dividend goes out, it's going to be your favorite thing that the government does. In Alaska, oh really? like what else is going to be on the list? I mean, let's see, I like that dividend. what else do I like? So in Alaska, they love the dividend so much that a majority of Alaskans say they would accept higher taxes to fund the dividend. And Alaskans are not exactly a pro-tax population. So after we put the dividend in place, it's going to be the favorite thing that we all do, and then Ren is going to be in a great position to enjoy it when she comes of age. So a couple things, one, it's impossible to teach financial literacy to someone who does not have money. You try it, it's a total waste of time. And two, imagine a country where you get $1,000 a month starting at age 18, and then you get a financial literacy course senior year of high school, right before you start getting the check. Do you think Ren's going to pay attention to that class? I think she will, because she'll be like, wait a minute, I'm actually getting this money. And then we'll make citizenship mean something in this country. We'll be able to look our kids in the eyes and say, your country loves you, your country values you, and you will be all right. Right now we tell the kids, hey, you can vote. And here in New Hampshire, that's actually very important. But a lot of the rest of the country, they're like, I can vote. That doesn't seem that cool. But when so I've run organizations, and there are 3 things you can do for people. Number 1, you do nothing, and then they leave you. Number 2, you tell them how great they are, and that works for about 2 years, and then they leave you. Number 3, you give them a raise. It's the only thing that works. We have to give ourselves, we have to give the American people a raise. We're going to give Ren a raise. Thank you all so much. Let's take some pictures. Thank you, New Hampshire. Let's do it. Let's make some history. All right. It's selfie time. I guess we're not going to do it on this booth because that's way too high. I'm just going to come down here. Just like this. There you go, sir.
Thank you to everyone that donated while he was speaking.
Thank you.
We couldn't talk.
We can't talk when he's talking, so thank you very much. We appreciate the dollars to come in. Y'all, we're working hard for you. We got one more live stream coming for you.
And it is snowing like crazy out there right now.
It is snowing like crazy, and it's going to take us over an hour to get there. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to end this live stream pretty quick. We're going to get the equipment loaded up. We'll probably get a little bit of footage while we're here. This was a very different,
Yeah, there was a stump speech.
it was a stump speech, but there was like so much new stuff, man. There was so much new stuff. It's really incredible. So we thank you guys. Thank you so much. Easy Cruise and all y'all who were in the chats telling everybody how much we appreciated it. We do. Thank you so much. Y'all, we will see y'all in about a little over an hour. We're going to get to the next one. We love you, Yang Gang. Oh, wait, look. Hold on, before we end the live stream, we got Zach over here.
I'm sorry your drink was awful.
Zach. So, just told Zach that we'd see him and talk to Andrew after the next one, hopefully. Hopefully.
We also invited a lot of people to this one, but there are some people I see that cannot make it to the next event because of the snowstorm we're going through. But maybe.
Oh, hold on.
But maybe some of the people we invited will be there. That'd be awesome.
Y'all recognize this dude right here? This is Alex from Beneath the Surface Podcast. He did an interview with us not too long ago. Y'all go over there. It was awesome. We definitely enjoyed being on there. You want to talk to the Yang Gang for a second?
Yeah, what's up, Yang Gang? It's great to see you guys. Thank you for watching this. Thank you for watching his channel. He deserves it more than anybody. It's great having him on. He's doing real work for the Yang Gang, real important work. He's making the ultimate sacrifices. So thank you guys for being here for him and for watching and donating to him and helping him do this. This is huge. He's, like I said, making the ultimate sacrifice. So thank you guys for watching. And it was an honor having him on the podcast. And I really had a good time with him. The great people right here. You guys already know that. But thanks for watching, you guys. Keep watching him.
Tell them your channel again. Where to find you.
Okay. You can find the interview I did with Grassroots Yang Gang on Beneath the Surface Podcast on YouTube. It's right there, and I've got a bunch of other podcasts there too. But one of my favorites was the Yang Gang, Grassroots Yang Gang interview I did with Russell. So go check that out if you guys want to. Thank you so much. Thank you, man.
Oh, y'all must be talking about my shirt. My shirt? Oh, Al's shirt. Thank you, Mike. All right, so we appreciate y'all. Yang Gang, we are headed to the next event. We're gonna make sure we get to speak to this guy afterwards. Y'all talking about, man, I'm telling you, y'all, this place is packed. There's a lot of people here, for sure. Thank you, Yang Gang. I'm gonna see if I can tell Andrew. We'll see him at the next one. Boomer Yangs.
On it. Oh my god.
There were a lot of Yang curious people here, and I guarantee you they were Yang. Y'all, they were definitely Yang. There was a lot of people here who were undecided. And you could tell by the response that they just went crazy. So we are definitely exiting out of this one now. We got to. We got to get to the next one. You want to tell the Yang bye? Hey. Tell the Yang Gang bye.
Bye.